Hey friends, how are you doing? Morning here, market about to open, and we'll talk about SoFi, talk about Hood here. I've joked about this before, but talking about these companies every day, I try talking about it every day. There's a lot more I want to talk about, but this is kind of two companies that I look into the what's coming part of my mind, and 5 years from now I go like, which one is ahead of the other one? But right now it's very fun watching both of these companies grow right in front of us, and it's really a special time for investors. If you're really into this stuff and you're really nerdy about it, obviously like me, this is a moment right here, and I want to talk about them both, and really just documenting what's going on with them both. So talk about SoFi first. I made a video yesterday talking about SoFi is definitely, I do believe, on a road to $100 here. More than likely, if it's not, it could be 2026, but if not, it's down the pipeline here 100%. Why do we know that? We know that because Robinhood's already over $100. If Robinhood can get to $100, there is no excuse why SoFi should not be there somewhere in the next year. Okay, but obviously a lot of this comes up with market. What does market look like economically? Where are we at? Blah, 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 blah. But let's just say things are still going steady for SoFi here, which they should be. We're not seeing doubts. We're not seeing drop off. We're actually seeing increase in quarterlies, customer basis, everything. The company putting money into the company pushing into partnerships, buying up other companies. We're seeing things like this. So, the next phase of this story right now is definitely going to be SoFi pushing into a $35 position. I don't think that is a big deal. I don't think anybody's going like, really? You think? SoFi is literally a dog on a leash right now, trying its hardest to get away from the person holding it. I mean, it is trying so hard. So we've had SoFi, let's just call it $32. We've had this. We know people are willing to pay for it. We know people are willing to go there with it. It's not going to take much more. And the market right now is so unstable where we think we're going to go here, because from Friday to Monday of what we have had news cycle wise, this is why last week I was screaming from the mountaintops like buy like that was the word of the week, because I figured this is what was going to happen. The market was going to come back. We were going to see highs again, blah, blah, blah. Same old story we've been going through. I wasn't believing this whole story of like, well, this is it. No, I was believing that this was a moment for people to push into the market where Wall Street was going to sell out and then quietly buy back in, which they did Friday. They bought all of your shares you sold, if people did. I'm not saying anybody personally, but I'm just saying like that's kind of what we saw here. So now Monday here was actually a pretty good day in the market. The tariff situation obviously is a huge topic right now in the market. This is what the market's looking at. Obviously, too, the government looks like it's about to open back up. With that, this Supreme Court / tariff situation, and now Trump is completely thrown in another monkey wrench here. Bullet points of that situation that will and could affect the market here in the next 24, 48 hours is that the Supreme Court is supposed to talk about this. Whether they make a decision, it gets passed, held up by Trump, lawyers, all this kind of stuff. Wednesday, we will hear more about this, if Trump is going to have to essentially give the money back. But now over the weekend, Trump came out and said, hey, we're going to use that money to send out stimulus checks to needy people, generally like most of the population. So I'm sure that's going to throw a hiccup in, the Supreme Court's going, well, yeah. Obviously, that would be great if they send out stimulus checks. There's plenty of people that can use those. But two, that could be, 6 months from now. We don't have a time stamp on that. But two, that will probably affect the market. The market, if you're sending people money, and obviously we've already seen kind of like, the pulses from that. The stock market went, well, that's good news. We like that. We keep the money, plus we give it to people. Great, they can spend it. Goes into the economy. Okay, and then of course somebody's going to write, well, it's to inflate. I get it. SoFi here, I've said this time and time again, but I definitely think SoFi is on this defiant road of pushing up here. There's no doubt that Robinhood here has had an amazing year, and they still are. They just came out with a banging quarterly. I am under this, and this is a huge argument. I have a friend who is in total disagreement with me about this conversation, and that's totally fine. And I love talking stocks. I love talking company. That's my jazz. I love this stuff. But I somewhat think that SoFi could surpass, maybe surpass is a bit of a too big of a word here, but go past, we'll take the surpass and we'll just go past Robinhood here this year here, maybe somewhere in the summer by Q2, Q3. Okay, Q2 probably, because Q3 is way down the road next year, but maybe it's that late into the year. That, Robinhood's quarterlies have been, okay, that's fine. They're still coming out with good quarterlies, and they've definitely shown that, like, hey, we're going to be at least in this $900 million range to $1 billion range, small $1 billion range of quarterlies. Okay. I'm not really even gonna like talk about these separately. I'm talking about them just all together here, because I definitely think if you're in one, you're in the other, or you will be sooner than later. Robinhood has had very seesaw quarterlies, where it's just been up and down. So, but with that, Robinhood is still unveiling strong reports, moving the company in the right way. What they do is getting stronger. Their bread and butter of their trading app. There's no doubt about it. And two, they're wanting to push into this bank narrative even more. Okay, great. SoFi here, who, yeah, undoubtedly, I do believe will move into a $35 position anytime. I mean, it's just looking for excuse. And two, that excuse may come at the end of the month. That excuse may come here at the beginning of December, when more than likely we see another rate cut. Two, sadly, with the government opening back up, that's not the sad part, but the sad part is, we'll probably get all of these job reports and economical papers that we haven't gotten, these reports. And two, that will say the feds will probably go, we already know job reports bad. We know they're going to be bad, from the payroll. With that, more than likely the feds will go, okay, we're definitely doing a December cut. So with that, banks could do really well next year. That's the thing. Bank stocks could be a hot commodity in the stock market next year. And SoFi being so cheap right now and so much on the table to gain with it, I think a lot of people are going to go like, I'm all in right now. That's probably what we're looking at here, because, Jerome Powell is gone, like in, I think, March, May, somewhere around there. He's gone. Trump's already said he's going to put his boy in there. And his boy is like, I want rate cuts as soon as I get in there. And they're going to do more rate cuts. So this is going to push up bank stocks. This is going to allow people to borrow money. And, banks are going to be lending out money like crazy to people. And they're going to be receiving money back. So, we stand to see a lot of banks start to bring in, more income off of loan programs next year, credit cards, things like that. Credit cards, but credit card will go down with how they're doing the rate cuts here, but just general loans could really pick up next year. This will do well for banks, but SoFi especially. This is why I'm so obsessed with SoFi here, because I do think there is a great argument that SoFi, who is doing so well in the banking aspect with accounts, with all of that stuff, that whole big conglomerate of what it is as a bank, is doing so well. And Robinhood here is really pushing into what they've been pushing into, their bread and butter of, their trading app. And two, a lot of that last bit of that chunk of $300,000 that was pushing Robinhood over the threshold of where they need to be was from their crypto trades. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's money they made. And, obviously we hope that continues for, all of us that are definitely in Robinhood. But I definitely think, I think there's a lot more focus, and I think there will be even more focus on SoFi this year. There's definitely, I definitely think both these companies more than likely have plenty of, conversation to maybe potentially move into the S&P. I think SoFi is definitely being eyed more. Where it could be put in the S&P 500, that would be huge. That would be amazing. But when SoFi finally gets, it's not like if, it's just when. And more than likely, it's going to be this next quarterly when SoFi gets into this $1 billion revenue place here. And more than likely, the next quarterly is going to be billion plus. Okay, that's going to be fantastic, and it's gonna give them what already, argument and ammunition that they have already, more than enough evidence that they should be more at the price point where they are right now. They should be more. it's going to shoot it up like a rocket. There's no doubt about it. I think there's a strong argument that SoFi is going to be one of the biggest stocks here in 2026. I really do. It may be hard for people to see it, but small things start in small places, and we've seen that with SoFi, where it came to market here, beat down, went to this $4 or $5 position, and now it's climbed itself it's climbed all the way back up here. SoFi has proven that it can survive storms. We've seen this. And with this year in the market, I think that too, people have been waiting on dramatic jumps with SoFi in revenue. And, SoFi, all in all, their growth has been slow, but their growth has been based on them as a fundamental bank. That's what they are. When it's all said and done, that's really what they do. Now, comparing apples to oranges here with SoFi and Robinhood, SoFi, yes, you can buy stocks with it. You can have a trade. They have a trading platform that they have on their app. You can buy stocks, sell stocks, all this kind of stuff. But Robinhood, obviously, that's their bread and butter. They have just made it super easy. Obviously, for people that hate it, it's not. There's things with it, problems, yes, but for newer investors, for people that just want something simple, playing around with it, they have just completely made it possible and easy for people. This is why Robinhood is essentially the biggest trading app. Everyone's got it probably in their pocket. I'm very curious to see the next phase here of SoFi and Robinhood price points. Robinhood already being so priced up right now, getting back into this 130 zone. I'm very curious to see if it's going to push back up into a 140, 150. It's going to highly depend on the market, where we go with the market. Tom Lee just gave another interview today, and he was like, yeah, I think the S&P 500 is definitely going to 7,000 point range, which, he's probably right. We're only like less than 150 points away at this point. So, the market's back up running here, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, like I said, there's a lot riding on this Supreme Court tariff thing. How much the market cares about this, we're about to find out. But Robinhood here, I do wonder how much more will people keep pushing it and keep buying it until their focus laser beams on SoFi, until SoFi starts to get a lot of attention, starts to get bought up a lot by Wall Street, a lot by investors, retail investor, every kind of investor possible. I'm very curious to see when this dam gets broken and, we wake up one day and SoFi's like at 40, 50, 70, 100. I think those days are coming, probably more than likely. They really are. I think a lot of us know it. If you've been in the market for a few seasons, you've seen things like this happen. We just watched it happen over the last year with Robinhood. That's what we've essentially what we're talking about here. We're talking about the run of Robinhood this year because, at the beginning of the year, Robinhood produced that $1 billion quarterly, and then boom. This is what we've been watching all year with Robinhood. So, it's not a negative conversation with either of these companies, these stocks. They're doing phenomenal numbers. They're doing great. But I do think that there's a strong argument to say that SoFi could pass. Maybe not. Let me define this. Not in share price. I do think that SoFi can pass Robinhood in revenue. But I do think that SoFi in 2026 can really catch up to Robinhood numbers. I don't think that there's a lot of people that may go against the grain of saying, hey, I think SoFi, could honestly go to 50 to 70 to $80 here next year, especially once they get this next quarterly underneath their belt. And, SoFi's like, okay, we're producing billion plus quarterly. We just did this many more accounts opening with customers. Friends, it's exciting. It's really exciting. I want to wish all of you the best of luck, and we will see what happens today. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.